Good evening, everybody. My name is KevinJJohnston. This is the Real Estate and Money Show, which is every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And due to popular request, tonight we're going to be talking about the truth in Canada about wage garnishments and frozen bank accounts that many of us believe mistakenly happens because the CRA has access to our banks, which you're going to find out tonight, really what the truth is on that. And I want to say thank you to all my American friends for being here, and thank you to all my Canadian friends for being here. We're going to cover for the next hour what the reality is of wage garnishment in Canada, what your rights are, what the law actually is on protecting yourself from government overreach, specifically in this case, the Canada Revenue Agency, which in Canada, it would be our IRS and the equivalent of the Australian ATO, but not as much power. In fact, nowhere near as much power as either the ATO or the IRS. We are going to talk about that. But first thing is first, everybody. Look what I found today, downtown Panama City. Yeah. The namesake of the former hockey player, Tim Horton. You all know that Tim Hortons Donuts in Canada was once bought by Wendy's and is now bought by some Indian guy, Singh, whatever his name is. So Tim Hortons has a location downtown Panama City. Have a look. There's the photograph right there of me taking a picture. I had no idea it was there. I was in a meeting today with a great number of people. I had a really good time today. Panamanians are very serious about doing business, which I love. And as we decided to just take a quick walk back, we bumped into Tim Hortons. You can see the twisty tower there in the background. That's called the F&F Tower. If you look in the background, you can tell by the reflection in the glass that I am not in Toronto. I'm in Panama City. Now, there's only one Tim Hortons here, and I'll share this information with you. This cup of coffee here in Panama at Tim Hortons is every bit as terrible as it is in Canada. I don't know what Tim Hortons did to their coffee formula about 8 years ago, but it sucks, and it sucks here too. Now, something else to keep in mind when you're down here in Panama is there are a lot of local business folks down here, men and women that run their own local coffee shops, their own cake bakeries, cookie bakeries, whatever it might be. You can get a cup of coffee at one of these places for 50 cents, which is delicious compared to Tim Hortons, which sucks. And you can get donuts this big for 80 cents. Or at Tim Hortons down here in Panama, you can get two little apple fritters like this and a really crappy cup of coffee for $8.40. Right. So I just want to point out that when you're dealing with this one Canadian coffee chain, one location down here in Panama, it's not worth it. It's cool to see that they've got Canadian decorations inside of it. They've got a pretty cool display of neon lights forming the maple leaf, but there you go. Don't buy Tim Hortons caca down here in Panama. You're going to be equally as disappointed as I was today. So I dumped half the coffee out because I just couldn't drink it anymore. And I stopped at a local coffee shop and got myself a 50-cent cup of coffee. And I am so much happier for it. All right. I wanted also, this one here, guys. I got this message in Facebook. It was a Facebook ad to do with taxes, which is, of course, what I do for a living. And here's what the ad looks like. It's from a company called Online Accounting LLP. It asks, are you 1, 2, 3 years behind on taxes? Now's the time to take action before the CRA does, the Canada Revenue Agency does. And what do we see in this advertisement? A police car. All right. They're trying to frighten you into hiring them to do your taxes, because this advertisement is telling all of you that you're going to get arrested if you don't do taxes. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this company. They ended up being in Edmonton, Alberta. And when I gave these people a call, I had a conversation with them for 34 minutes. It was a 34-minute conversation. And I grilled this guy. I lied to him, said, yeah, my mother's 83 years old. She saw your ad She flipped out. She's been staring out the window for the last 3 days, waiting for the police to come and get her. She hasn't done her taxes. And then I start asking him a ton of questions about their capacity to do taxes. Questions like, will you cooperate with an auditor? Well, yes, we will. You have to. It's the government, he says to me. I want you to go and hear this thing for yourself. So if you're looking right there, this is my Rumble page, everybody. You can see it's this video right here. It's the second most recent one. You can see it's 38 minutes long. Please get in there and listen to it. freedomreport.ca is how you're going to find that video. And eventually this guy just comes out and tells the truth that they do whatever the CRA says because they are afraid of the Canada Revenue Agency. So an accounting company that advertises that you will get arrested if you don't do your taxes used fear tactics to sucker people into contacting them, to hire them to do taxes, only to tell me on the phone that they themselves are afraid of the CRA. And I'm telling you all, the Canada Revenue Agency does not have any authority in Canada. If you have auditors contacting you, get a hold of me and I will get rid of the auditor. I will ban them from your home, from your office, from your business, and even phoning you again in the future, utilizing the appropriate legalese and the appropriate legal letters and the appropriate legal demands, because I am not afraid of the CRA. I know what they are. They are merely a collection agency that gets government funding to make you angry and to lie to all of you. And I'm not thrilled about that in any particular way. In fact, it aggravated me so much so that I kept this guy on the phone for as long as he would answer questions. So as you hear me speaking to him, of course, I lied about wanting to hire him. I lied about my mother being alive and being afraid of the ad. Who cares? I lied. I'm telling all of you, I'm telling you the truth that I lied to this company to get them to answer questions so that I can protect all of you from really bad people and really bad accountants. Yeah, I lied. What happens if you lie? Nothing, except you make really good content. So I want you to go ahead and play this this video for yourselves, freedomreport.ca, and have a listen to just how useless this particular accounting company really is. You know, in fact, I would encourage everybody watching this show, call accountants in Canada and ask them questions. Very important questions. Will you cooperate with an auditor if the auditor contacts you? If they say yes, you got to get rid of them because they don't work for you. They work for the CRA. Can the CRA pull your license? If they say, well, yes, they can. They're the government. Get rid of them because no, the CRA cannot do that. If you're talking with them and you ask them, can the CRA arrest you or otherwise, if they say yes, got to get rid of them. The CRA cannot do that, not in any way. So please go through that video and understand that's why I do what I do. I want to help protect you, but I need all of you to start phoning accounting companies and ask the same questions of accounting companies in Canada that I ask of accounting companies. Trap them, put them on the spot, record the calls, and send me the recordings. Because if you want to give me your authorization to go ahead and cut it as a video, then I will absolutely do so. We can take your videos where you're calling accountants and put them on my channel so that we collectively, as the general public of Canada, can start to fight back against the CRA by making sure that we absolutely crush these accounting companies that cooperate with the CRA. And as for those of you who are in the United States, you know that I can buy your corporations from you. I can take away all your corporate debt in the USA, and you'll be happy to know that I've begun now studying personal income tax law in the United States. It's not easy. It's a very convoluted. It's worse than Canada's system, the way that everything is worded. But eventually I am going to figure all of that out. Clap. If the CRA seized your bank account and took your money, you got to get a hold of me. I'm going to repair your taxes for the last 10 years and get that bank account unlocked and get your money back for you. That is exactly what I do. I will go back 10 years and I'll find every single mistake that previous accountants have made, get you back your money. Now, tonight's show, we've got 45 minutes to review what is really going on when banks seize your money. In Canada, we have laws, and laws pertain to all of us combined. It's the rule for all of society. But in Canada, we also have what's called an act, A-C-T. An act is not a law. It's a series of rules that govern a set portion of the population, specifically those who have a set job, like the Canada Revenue Agency, to which the Income Tax Act and the Excise Tax Act will govern what they can and cannot do. But the act, it's not laws. And the acts do not pertain to we the people at all. So what will happen here with the Canada Revenue Agency, and this is for all of you to understand how to navigate them and protect them. When I tell you that you don't have to talk to the CRA, I mean it. Don't talk to them on the phone, but you should absolutely reply to all of their letters, because in Canada, they will send you a letter saying, we want you to redo your taxes or whatever, and you only have 30 days to do it. Don't ignore the letter. Hire me. I'll send off the letter saying, thank you very much for your letter, and we need 120 days to get these taxes done for you. And there's nothing that they can do at that particular time because it's a legal command. Then what will happen here, let's say you don't hire me. What will happen after the first letter? If you ignore it, they'll make 3 phone calls to you. And if they don't get through to you, or you hang up, or you scream at them, or whatever it might be, then they're just going to say, we made 3 attempts, we couldn't get through. And then they send you one last letter. And if they can't get you to do your taxes or speak to them, not pay them money, but just do your taxes. There's a difference. If they can't get you to do that in Canada, then what they do is they send out a requirement to pay letter to your bank. Now, they know about your bank only if your social insurance number, the 9-digit code you get when you're born, or when your parents get you one, that is attached to your bank account. The way you protect yourself is have a corporate account where you are not the director. I'll explain that one in a future show. But they will then send out the requirement to pay letter to your bank. Now, it does not mean that they know what's in there. The bank is actually not allowed to tell them what your balances are. But when this requirement to pay letter gets sent out by the Canada Revenue Agency, the banks automatically just pay them, right? The banks are not in any way, shape, or form obligated by law to give them any money. In fact, the bank could just make a phone call saying, listen, you're suggesting that I steal somebody's money and give it to you. And you're suggesting that I do this without a court order. The banks could say, who do you think you are? The answer is no, we're not going to do that. But the banks don't do that. Do you know why? Because Canadians don't turn around and file criminal charges against bank managers, which you have the right to do. It's your money. It's been stolen from you. Canadians don't sue the banks, which you should. I've sued almost every federal bank in Canada, usually for selling my information to third-party individuals that phone me up trying to sell me stocks and bonds. I always sue the banks for about $5,000, typically between 5 and 10, and they usually will settle out of court for about $3,000. It's a free $3,000. I take it and I just sign off. Okay, no, case closed. Thank you. But you've got the right to do this, and Canadians don't do it. That's why these requirement to pay letters go out to banks, and the banks just fold up and say, okay, here's the money, because they know you're not going to do anything about it. You can, and you should, but they know that you won't. And that is why when a lot of you get onto my videos and you tell me, hey, Kevin, you don't know what you're talking about. The CRA has authority. They stole my money. They took my money out of the bank. No, they did not. They sent a letter to the bank that was not a court order, and the bank chose to give your money to them. There is a very big distinction that must be made when you are considering the banks cooperating with the Canada Revenue Agency. It is the banks that are completely and totally liable for your money being handed over to the CRA when that is exactly what happens to you. All right, Clap is saying, specifically told my bank not to take my money out of my account to give it to the CRA. Again, Clap, you got to get a court order, a real simple one. It's called a motion in the courts. You file a motion in the court, you subpoena the CRA, they're not going to show up. You tell the judge that they took it out without a court order and you want an order to put it back, and the judge will give it to you. That's all that it takes. It's just a request from the judge, because for the CRA to issue that letter, it's not a lawful command. It's just something that the Excise Tax Act says the CRA is allowed to do. But we're going to read this to you so that you understand it. In fact, I had a really good conversation with a private bank owner. I'm not going to tell you who, but I am going to say that I'm very, very grateful for the time he spent speaking to me. And he sent me off a letter stating that even private banks are subject to this. And his lawyer sent me over two things to consider about why the banks would hand your money over to the CRA. And I'm going to cover them right now. The first one is the Excise Tax Act. That is section number 317. I'm going to share that on my screen right now with you. All right, let's get this rocking here. Excise Tax Act. And okay, here we go, everybody. This is section 317 of the Excise Tax Act. And I'm just going to read it verbatim and explain it to you. Garnishment. 317, subsection 1, if the minister has knowledge or suspects that a particular person is or will be within 1 year liable to make a payment to another person who is liable to remit an amount under this part in subsections 2, 3, 6, and 11, referred to as a tax debtor, the minister may, not must, may, by notice in writing, require the particular person to pay without delay. All right, so let's cover this first paragraph here. The minister, which is just some jerk. It's not the minister. It's not the Minister of Finance in Canada. It is just some jerk who works for the Canada Revenue Agency that writes a letter and sends it off to the bank. So if you hear what it says, the minister, or in this case, the CRA loser, may, in writing, require, which is to request, not you must do, it's just a request, require the bank to pay without delay. Or anyone for that matter. It doesn't have to be a bank. It could be your bookie. It could be your job. It could be your life insurance policy. So when the CRA sends these letters out, it's the bank who receives it, and it's the bank who says, yeah, okay, I'm going to do what we're told. Let me finish here. If the monies are payable immediately, and in any other case, and when the monies become payable, the monies otherwise payable to the taxed debtor in whole or in part to the receiver general on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part. So, translation. If the CRA says you owe money, you never owe the CRA money. They say you do, and there is a difference. If the CRA says to your bank, Kevin here owes money, and if you have money in your account that you would normally let him have, give it to us because we want it and we sent you a letter. Not a court order, just a letter. But it gets more serious here. But it's not more serious for us, more serious against the banks. Let's read further on this. Idem, subsection 2. Without limiting the generalities of subsection 1, where the minister or CRA has knowledge or suspects that within 90 days, a bank, credit union, trust company, or other similar person in this section referred to as the institution will loan or advance monies to or make a payment on behalf of or make a payment in respect of a negotiable instrument issued by a tax debtor who is indebted to the institution and who has granted security in respect of the indebtedness, or a person other than the institution will loan or advance monies to or make a payment on behalf of a tax debtor who the minister knows or suspects, subsection 1, is employed by or is engaged in providing services or property to that person, or was or will be within 90 days so employed or engaged, or 2, where that person is a corporation not dealing at arm's length with that person. Here's where it gets dumb. The minister may, not must, by notice in writing, require the institution or person, as the case may be, to pay in whole or in part to the receiver general, which is the CRA, on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part, the monies that would otherwise be so loaned, advanced, or paid, and any monies so paid to the Receiver General are deemed to have been loaned, advanced, or paid, as the case may be, to the tax debtor. So it's really terrible language designed to say, hey, we, the CRA, says Kevin here, owes money. We can't prove it. We have no evidence to prove anything that we just said. But because of this IDEM, Section 2 of Section 317, we want you to give it to us. So give it to us. That's all they're saying. And they're saying it in a letter that is not backed by a judge's stamp or a court order. Now, how sick is that? By the way, if you're watching us on Kick or here on TikTok, we get everyone doing double fingers on the screen. Let's get the hearts flying. Let's get the likes going, everybody. It really does help bring this education level to everybody out there. I really do appreciate that. So the CRA sends a letter to the bank, and this act, which pertains only to the CRA and not we the people or the banks, is what the banks are using to steal your money and give to the CRA. Let's read further. Garnishment, Section 3. Despite any provision of this part, other than any enactment of Canada, other than the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, any enactment of a province or any law, if the minister has knowledge or suspects that a particular person is or will become within 1 year liable to make a payment, A, to a tax debtor, or B, a secured creditor who has the right to receive the payment that, but for a security interest in favor of the secured creditor, would be payable to the tax debtor. You know what they're saying here? Let's say you've got a court order to pay child support, and if you don't pay it, you go to jail, according to the court order. The CRA says, yeah, you know what? Don't pay the child support. Give it to us. Let them go to jail, but give it to us anyway because Section B says so. But it's not a court order. It's not a law. It's an act. The minister may, by notice in writing, require the particular person to pay without delay. May, not must, and not can, but just may, which means it's discretionary, which means he doesn't have to, but they do anyway. If the monies are paid immediately, and in any other case, as when the monies become payable, the monies otherwise payable to the tax debtor, in this case, let's say me, or the secured creditor, in whole or in part to the Receiver General on account of the tax debtor's liability under this part, and on receipt that notice by the particular person, the amount of those monies that is so required to be paid to the Receiver General shall, despite any security interest in those monies, become the property of Her Majesty, or now His Majesty of Canada, to the extent of that liability as assessed by the minister, and shall be paid to the Receiver General in priority to any such interest. So, if you've got a mortgage and you have money in the bank, the money has to go to the CRA and not your mortgage, so you lose your house and now you can't make money to pay the debt. Personally speaking, anyone who does that to you honestly deserves to be hanged by the neck until dead. You can't do that because the law says you can't. But when a person who works for the CRA does this and takes your money from you without a court order, they are a criminal. It doesn't matter that lawyers might say, but it's an act and they've got the right to do it. No, they actually don't. This here says they may ask for it, but nobody is obligated to give it to them. And who in the hell believes that they have the power to even demand this of anyone? Here's me hoping and praying that everybody who works for the CRA gets what's coming to them. I really do hope and pray. I can't sit here and advocate for violence because that would be solicitation of a crime, and that is a crime unto itself. So I won't do so, but they deserve it. So for 2025, everybody, you'll be happy to know that we're going to run a series of fundraisers countrywide so that we can have a whole team. I've got 2 private investigators that work for me now, but I want a whole team of private investigators to track down the home addresses of every single person who works for the CRA so that when they pull stunts like this, we can just go and take their houses with contractor liens. There you go. And Tim, you're correct. Acts do not apply to people. It applies to corporations and set groups of people who work for those corporations. That's 100% correct what you just said. Getting a little bit further into the Excise Tax Act, effect of receipt, more legalese nonsense. Section 5. If the minister has, under this section, required a person to pay the receiver general on account of the liability under this part of a tax debtor, monies otherwise payable by the person to the tax debtor as interest, rent, remuneration, a dividend, an annuity, or other periodic payment, the requirement applies to all such payments. Wow. So could you imagine, thank you, Deborah, could you imagine you shot some commercials and you get a residual check every month. And now the CRA goes to the production studio who pays you residual checks every month for every time you appear on TV, and they get your money. Or you have a dividend on an investment that you busted your whole life for. The dividend payments go to them. The audacity of that. But that's only if the CRA knows that you get these things. So, how does the CRA know? Because you told them. Because at some point you did a tax return where you said, I get dividend income. I own a house and I have rental income. I was in a TV show years ago, or I did some radio work and I get residuals. You told them that. The CRA has absolutely no way to know any of these things at all. Even if the CRA gets a T4 from your employer, we can write a legal letter to the CRA. We can swear it in like this with a notary public, and we can state that the T4 was submitted in error and all the tax information on it we vehemently deny. Why don't we do this? Well, I do this for my clients all the time. If I look at a T4 and I think there's one mistake on it, then I'm going to go ahead and attack the CRA saying, you cannot use this T4. It's an error. Then we go and attack your employer and we get them to fix it. And that's another long story unto itself, but I do this for clients all the time. So what I'm getting at here, everybody, is that the CRA is making a boatload of demands. Hold on, I'm just going to get rid of a troll here. Someone's calling themselves David White. They're trying to get my attention. They're not going to get it, and they are officially blocked. Confirm. Bye-bye. We don't tolerate trolls here, everybody. Sorry. This is about finance and commerce, not about personal vendettas you might have. All right. The way that we do this is the CRA is going to make demands of anyone that they know might be giving you money, and they're going to send letters to those parties, your bookie, your boss, your bank, your creditors, your life insurance company, all of these things, okay? And Travis, I see you there. If you wanted to talk to me, just go to my personal website. That's the best place to hit me. Please, KevinJJohnston.com, myname.com. Travis, I'd love to talk to you. We have to stop telling the CRA everything about our personal lives, because everybody out there who tells the CRA anything, the CRA now knows and will pursue it. They will chase it. And the banks, as you've learned, are complete cowards, and they will give in and give your money away. Your boss is probably going to give in and garnish your wages. We'll talk about garnishments in just a couple of minutes here. But this is the most important part now of the Excise Tax Act. This is the part. Okay, Travis, I get it. I see your comments. I see them. Please stop. All right, everyone, just send one at a time. Let me just digest what you're saying. I want you to understand now that if you go to the Criminal Code of Canada, which is on the Canada.ca website, and you read every single solitary crime that they have there, there's always a section called punishment. Punishment. Section 319 of the Criminal Code says if you offend somebody, they're going to shake their finger and get really mad, but the punishment is 2 years in prison. Oh, yeah. Bill C-63 in Canada, which has now been voted in, says if you offend anybody on the left through social media, they're going to get really mad and you're going to go to jail for life. Those are laws, and those laws always have punishments attached to them. So now I'm going to read to you directly from the Excise Tax Act what the punishment is if a bank does not give your money to them. Failure to comply. Section 7. Every person who fails to comply with a requirement under subsections 1, 3, and 6 is liable to pay Her Majesty in right of Canada an amount equal to the amount that the person was required to pay under that subsection. Is liable to pay. Okay, so what they're saying here is, let's say you work for McDonald's, and let's say McDonald's pays you $20 an hour. If the CRA tells your boss at McDonald's, garnish this guy's wages because we say, we can't prove it, but we say he owes money and we want it. And we didn't even get a court order because we are criminals and we have decided that we're just going to act like criminals and intimidate you and so on. McDonald's, if they don't give the half of your salary to the CRA, according to Section 7 here, is liable for the $10 an hour they're stealing from you. But let me cover that one in just a second here. Stick around, please. Section 8, every institution or person that fails to comply with the requirement under subsection 2 with respect to monies to be loaned, advanced, or paid is liable to pay to Her Majesty in right of Canada an amount equal to the lesser of the aggregate monies loaned or the amount that the institution or person was required to pay. Now, there's an assessment that'll get done, so the CRA will guess what that number is. But look. The word punishment is not here. There's no punishment. If you are a business owner and the CRA issues a garnishment order to you and you refuse to steal money from your staff, the CRA will say, well, we're going to shake our finger and we're going to get really mad and we're going to tell you in writing that you're liable. But even the act itself does not allow us to punish you. You know how somebody would actually be liable for that money? Is if the Canada Revenue Agency sued you. And I've got news for everybody out there watching this show right now. The Canada Revenue Agency does not sue anyone. They do not sue the banks. They do not sue corporations. They do not sue you or you or you. They don't sue any of you. They don't do that because the Canada Revenue Agency is not a police force. They do not have authority. What they do is they rely on the lawyers provided to them by the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice actually bills time to the CRA. So if the CRA is going to sue you to try to get you to pay the garnishment on someone's wages, they would have to hire a lawyer. But only the DOJ is allowed to represent them. And the DOJ is most certainly not going to allow themselves to be used to sue McDonald's for $10 an hour. The CRA, if they were to sue you, you could hire, let's just say, they're not going to sue you. But for argument's sake, if they did, you hire me. Here's what happens when you get sued. You file a defense. What you do is you vehemently deny everything within it, and you challenge them to prove anything. And the CRA cannot prove anything because they don't know anything about you. They only know what's on your tax return. And if you swear an affidavit stating that your tax return was wrong, then they have no evidence at all. So when you file a defense, the CRA, if they sue you, which they don't, the CRA would get a notice that you defended your lawsuit. They would get a letter from me saying, hey guys, Kevin J. Johnston here. You know who I am. You don't like me very much. And I'm representing my client in this case. The first thing that happens is it goes to a settlement conference. Now, this is something that you call a without prejudice meeting. What that means is nothing that gets discussed between the justice of the peace, not a judge, the justice of the peace and us and the CRA, nothing that gets talked about there is being recorded and cannot be used as evidence in the upcoming trial. So the CRA, if they sued you, which they won't, would say something like, well, we ordered his boss to take money away from him, and the boss didn't do it. And under the Excise Tax Act, it says he's liable, so we're suing the boss. That's it. And then I would stand up proudly. I'd have my suit and tie on. Yeah, I'd look a little better than I do right now, which is not really possible. But I would get up on stage and tell the justice of the peace, well, under the Excise Tax Act, it says that the employer is liable for it, but does not issue any form of punishment. Ergo, this is an incomplete law. Wait a minute, hold on. It's not a law. It's an act that pertains to the CRA and those who work for it and does not pertain to my client and does not pertain to my client's employer. So we actually would like to ask you, please, to withdraw this. Throw it out. It can't go anywhere. Now, the justice of the peace might just say, yeah, you know what? You're right. We can't proceed. Or he might say, no, I want to see where this goes. That's when he will ask me and the CRA's lawyer to go out in the hallway and discuss everything. And that's where I'm going to go out in the hallway with the lawyer and say, listen, whatever you're going to say, the answer is no. So why don't we just go back in there and book a trial? Because I want to set a precedent by beating you in court. And he's going to say, well, wait, hold on. We don't want that. And I'll ask him, well, what's the offer? What's the offer on the table? Let me hear it. And sometimes they will say that they're prepared to drop it. And this has already happened with other corporations where I have fought against them in court, where they will drop the lawsuit. I just have to sign off that I won't talk about it, which is fine. I've got a bundle of cases I can't talk about, and that's fine. It doesn't matter because I want to win for my client. So if we can't agree that the CRA will drop the case, I'm going to march right back in without the guy and say, Your Worship, or in Alberta, me lord, we can't agree on anything. I would like to book a full-blown trial, and I'm hereby requesting a 4-day trial. The JP is going to ask, why would you want to book 4 days for a simple, small claim? Well, it's because I have a list of 200 people I would like to subpoena to this trial, please. Bob Hamilton, the commissioner of the CRA, Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, Doug Ford, everybody who's involved with the CRA in some way, I'm going to subpoena all of them. Do you think for a second that a judge is going to allow that to happen? It would turn the courts into a farce. So they're not going to do it. And that's when they're going to say, well, if you're going to subpoena that many people, which I have the right to do, I might add, they can't let that go on. They're not going to let me book 4 days. So again, they're going to, the JP will then ask me and my client to leave the courts so the JP can talk some sense into the CRA. That's how it would work. The whole thing would get tossed out the door. But because the Canada Revenue Agency does not sue anybody in Canada, this will never happen. So I have just proven to all of you tonight, reading the Excise Tax Act to you, that there is no punishment that the CRA can issue to your employer if they do not wish to garnish your wages. And there is no punishment that will be issued to any bank in Canada if they refuse to hand over your money to the CRA. And that is the most important thing for Canadians to understand. The Excise Tax Act does not pertain to we the people at all. Superstar is asking a question here. How about if you owe GST collected for 20 years ago? Can they take it from your bank account? If you reported that you have GST that you collected, they will certainly try. Yes. But what you got to do there, superstar, is get a hold of me and I will fix the GST or the HST or the PST reporting that you've done. The odds are good if you're not an accountant, you got the numbers wrong. I will get the numbers right and make sure that those 20 years worth of debts are history. I'm just going to show you now the Income Tax Act. Let me change screens here. Hold on. I'm just going to switch. StreamYard's not the easiest one in the world to switch on. And the Income Tax Act. Here we go. So this is the other section or the other act that the banks will rely on. When the banks when you're yelling at your bank saying, you took all my money, you gave it to the CRA, I want my money back. The banks will say, we can't. Our hands are tied. The CRA said we had to do it, so we have to do it. It's the same thing. Look at the wording of this. Whereas the minister with knowledge and suspects that you owe money, they'll attack. Garnishment, you see, it's the same thing. All right. Definitions, secured creditor, it's all the same thing. Garnishment, here we go. This is the Income Tax Act. Provisions of this act that provide a person who has been required to do so by the minister must pay to the receiver general an amount that would otherwise be lent, advanced, or paid to the taxpayer who is liable to make a payment under this act, or to that taxpayer's secured creditor apply to Her Majesty and Right of Canada. Blah, blah, blah. Same wording. Okay. IDEM. Here we go. Failure to comply. This is now the Income Tax Act, Section 224, subsection 4. What happens if you choose not to comply? Every person who fails to comply with a requirement under subsection 2241, 2241.2, or 224 section 3 is liable to pay Her Majesty an amount equal to the amount that that person was required under the same subsections as the case may be to pay the Receiver General. All right, hold on. Failure to comply with S1.1. Every institution or person that fails to comply with a requirement under subsection 2241.1 with respect to monies to be lent, advanced, or paid is liable to pay Her Majesty an amount equal to the lesser of A, the total amount of monies lent, advanced, or paid, and B, the amount that the institution or person was required under that subsection to pay the Receiver General. And look at this. Once again, the word punishment is not there, which means it is not a law that pertains to we the people. It doesn't pertain to the bank. It doesn't pertain to your employer. It doesn't pertain to anyone. So, when I tell all of you the CRA does not have authority, you understand now what I'm talking about. The Excise Tax Act and the Income Tax Act are not laws that the banks and employers have to follow, but the banks do follow anyway because Canadians do not file criminal charges against bank managers, and we all have to start doing this. Otherwise, this practice of the CRA sending out threats to the bank and the bank capitulating is going to continue. And it's we, the little guy, who loses every single time. Now, what is the solution if the bank shuts down your account? Charge them criminally, sue the bank, sue the CRA, hire me to do your taxes. I'll get them all done for you. I'll correct every mistake that's in there. And once your taxes go in and I have put forward all the write-offs that you're legally allowed to have, and remove all the income that was improperly reported and get your taxes down to zero, then the garnishment has to go away and the money goes back into your bank account. So the fastest way is to stop going to H&R Block, stop going to Sidler & Co., stop going to these stupid accountants out there and these idiots on TikTok who tell you, well, I'm a tax expert. I can help you pay less. So tell you what, I can help you pay zero. And I'm the guy who the CRA is actually afraid of. And I know this because the CRA sent me a threatening letter saying, you know too much. You know too many laws. And we don't like that. So you're not allowed to represent people anymore, which of course my lawyer fired right back and shot them down in flames. Now, can you think of any accounting company in Canada that would actually read the Excise Tax Act for you and interpret it for you and explain it to you? No, of course you're not. You're going to get accountants and managers and employers out there that just do what they're told. That's the Canadian way, by the way, is to be a completely spineless, gutless coward and do everything that you're told. Barbara, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. So, Canada, I would now like to talk about wage garnishing. Everything, yes, Travis, that letter is on my, it's on TikTok, it's on Instagram, KevinJJohnston X, it's on Twitter, KevinJJohnston X, it's on my website, KevinJJohnston.com. It's absolutely everywhere. So when your wages get garnished, here's how it happens. It's exactly the same thing. It's almost exhausting to have to explain this, but I'm going to do it because this is what I do for a living, everyone. If the CRA says you owe money, it is only because you told them that you owe money on your tax return. That's okay, I fix. But if the CRA says you owe money and they want it and you're not cooperating with them, they will send the requirement to pay letter out to your boss. Now, this is where I lose my mind with employers. And I have given a lot of employers a very difficult time this year. The number one commodity, the number one asset that every business has is a highly skilled employee who's dedicated to the company. If you've got an employee who does their job, doesn't complain, doesn't take extra long lunches, doesn't sell your secrets to other companies, shows up even when they're sick, obeys the rules, treats people with respect, your customers love them. You're going to repay them by stealing money from their paycheck and giving it to a collection agency because you got a letter. What a scumbag you are if that's what you're going to do. You are a coward and a scumbag, but here's the worst part for employers out there. If you are an employer out there and you garnish someone's wages and give that money to the CRA without a court order, you know what else you are? You're a criminal. And I mean literally, you are stealing money. You have committed fraud and you've committed theft. And because you conspired with the CRA to steal that money without a court order, the court order would protect you. But because you've conspired, it's also conspiracy. These are very serious criminal charges. Why would you do that? Why would you become a criminal because you got a letter in the mail? And the odds are pretty good you got a letter in the mail from somebody who's not a Canadian citizen, someone who doesn't deserve to even be in the country or be around decent human beings. Yeah. So what I want to tell you is that you shameful, gutless individuals, I'm going to be, in 2025, I'm going to be helping my clients sue your company, sue you personally, put liens on your properties, and charge you criminally. It's time to take what I do to the next level. Employers should be terrified to cooperate with the CRA. I know what the CRA says. Now, the CRA, the employer who gets these letters could actually charge the CRA with this, but they don't. The CRA always says, if you don't give us your staff's money, we may, not will, we may audit you. That's the threat they use. And employers are losers. Oh my God, I don't want to get audited. That's what they sound like. If they audit you, you call me and I get rid of the auditor. I'm the one that tells the auditor, hey, You can't talk to my client. You got to talk to me. You're banned from the property. You're banned from their church. You're banned from their home. You can't even phone them. If you talk to any of the staff, guess what happens? We're going to find you. We're going to take your house. That's my job. So employers out there, watch out. I'm going to make an example of you. The CRA, they've got the right to send a letter, but so do I. And you do not have the right to steal someone's money because the CRA sends a letter. The only right the CRA has is to send the request for money. You've got the right to say no. And if they send an auditor after you, that's a crime. It's malicious prosecution. That is a crime. It's what the Americans call a felony. It's what the Canadians call an indictable offense. It's a crime. You do jail time for these things. So we, the people, need to go on the attack. If any of you out there have had your wages garnished and they're still being garnished now, get a hold of me. We're going to get your money back because I'm going to go to war with your employer over that. Think about all the crimes that the CRA has committed. I don't care that they have an act that says they could do these things. They are still breaking the law. Acts mean nothing. And remember, everybody, at Nuremberg, when Nazis said, I shot children in the head because I was just following orders, it didn't work for them. They all got hanged. It's not going to work for your employers, and it's not going to work for the CRA. As long as we, the people, gang up on them and become an army and fight back. It takes nothing. We don't even have to use violence. We just have to sue your boss and go to the courthouse. If the cops will not file charges, then you go to the courthouse. You grab the forms that they have. It's called filing a private information. You can file criminal charges against somebody in a courthouse. It's free. Then the police have to go see your boss and hand your boss a summons to appear in court on criminal charges. Why are we not doing this as a society, everybody? Now, you got to remember, I would love to do this for everybody out there. I've only got so many hours in a day, but I'm going to be teaching everybody across Canada how to charge CRA criminals and your bosses and your bank managers who steal your money. Because if we don't take a stand now, I'm telling you this, the CRA is just going to keep taking until all of you are homeless. And that is exactly what the Liberal Party wants. They want all of you broke and desperate and destitute and kicked out of your home so that Trudeau's friends can come in and buy your houses cheap from the bank after your mortgages get foreclosed upon. You all got to stop paying tax. Now, next week, I'll be covering how to never pay income tax again legally. Yeah, there's a legal, not the free man on the land crap, not that sovereign citizen nonsense. I don't do that stuff. All I do is show you the law and then show you the steps you follow to abide by the law. Never mind the act. Who cares? The law. If you're doing things legally, everybody, you'll never pay tax in Canada again. And the CRA is in panic mode now, sending me ridiculously stupid letters, but it hasn't worked because now the CRA, when they call me to talk about my clients, they're really polite. Now, of course, when someone's polite with me, I'm always polite back. I'm just telling you that it is possible to frighten the CRA. They're cowards. They think that these acts are going to protect them. And then I say, no, they won't. And then we just attack without weapons. We attack with paper and court orders and criminal charges. Let's do it, everyone. If you want your taxes done properly, everybody, get a hold of me at my website. It's KevinJJohnston.com. Book yourself a 1-hour consultation. I can't wait to help you get all your tax problems fixed. I'm going to go back 10 years in your taxes and get you back at least 50% of what you've paid, and it's all going to be done legally within the bounds of the law because the CRA has no laws to back it up, just acts, and those don't mean a thing, especially even in a court of law. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Income Tax Show. Well, we're going to call it pretty much everything. It's the Real Estate and Money Show. We cover income tax a lot. It's every Thursday for the rest of this year at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on freedomreport.ca. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.